AITA for ending my stepdaughter's support after she said paying bills didn't make me family? I'm Blake, 46, and I had been Caroline's husband for 8 years when her daughter Leah looked across a dinner table full of relatives and made it clear I was never supposed to be more than the guy who kept the lights on. I met Leah when she was 10. She still wanted the crusts cut off her sandwiches, hated the smell of scrambled eggs, and got carsick if she ate anything chocolate before a long drive. I never once forced her to call me Dad. I never even hinted at it. She had a father. His name was Trevor, and no matter how inconsistent he was, that was a fact I respected. But I did the dad things anyway. I sat through school concerts where the microphone squealed for 40 minutes. I learned how to do a decent ponytail because Caroline was working late one night and Leah had a choir performance. I kept spare hair ties in my glove box. I knew which gas station had the ginger chews that helped when Leah got nauseous on road trips. I took her to urgent care when she sprained her wrist after Trevor forgot he was supposed to pick her up from practice. I paid for braces, activity fees, application fees, car insurance, and a phone line she treated like oxygen. Trevor was good at big moments. He was not good at Tuesdays. He could show up late to a birthday party with a glossy gift bag and somehow make everyone clap because at least he made it. He could post a long caption about how proud he was of Leah and then ignore 3 texts about a parent meeting. He could promise, "Next time, I got you," so smoothly that Caroline would sigh, tell me he was trying, and then ask if I could cover whatever needed covering just this once. This once became every time. At first, Caroline saw it clearly. She used to tell me I was the reason her life stopped feeling like one long emergency. Some nights, she would stand in the kitchen while I loaded the dishwasher and touch my arm like she was grounding herself. "I don't know what Leah and I would do without you," she would say. I believed her. Maybe that was my mistake. Not believing my wife loved me, but believing that private appreciation would eventually become public respect. Because over the years, the pattern changed. Caroline still praised me when it was just us, but whenever Leah hurt me, Caroline asked me to be the bigger person. When Leah was 13 and screamed, "You're not my dad," because I told her she couldn't go to a sleepover until her grades improved, Caroline pulled me aside later and said, she didn't mean it like that. When Leah was 15 and told Trevor, in front of me, that he was the only parent who actually understood her, even though he hadn't paid for the phone she was using to text him, Caroline said, "Don't compete with him. It makes you look insecure." When Leah was 17 and I asked why my gas card had 3 charges in one afternoon, she snapped, "You don't get to monitor me like I'm your kid." I said, "I only seem to be treated like family when the bill arrives." Caroline gave me that look, the one that said I was technically right, but emotionally inconvenient. "Blake," she said quietly, "please don't make everything transactional." I backed off because I was afraid that if I pushed too hard, Leah would shut me out completely. I told myself that patience was love. I told myself that showing up without demanding a title was the honorable thing to do. Now I can admit something uglier. I used money and reliability as a substitute for hard conversations. It was easier to pay the bill than to ask why the person using my services only called me family when the payment failed. Leah's college acceptance letter went up on the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Caroline cried when Leah opened it. I hugged Leah, told her I was proud of her, and meant it. Trevor posted a picture of Leah holding the letter and wrote, "My baby did it." Real dads never stop believing. He hadn't helped with the applications. He hadn't remembered the essay deadline. He hadn't paid for the application fees. I had, but I didn't say that. I stood in the kitchen and stared at the college portal on my laptop while Caroline and Leah called relatives. A tuition deposit was due soon. Housing paperwork after that. Books, a meal plan, car insurance renewal, phone, gas, emergency money. The same ordinary, boring numbers that don't fit inside proud social media captions. Years earlier, I had opened a 529 account for Leah. It was in my name, with Leah listed as the beneficiary. I did it after Trevor missed half a summer camp payment, and Caroline cried at the kitchen table because she hated asking me again. "I'll pay you back," she had said. I told her not to worry about it. I should have worried about it. When Trevor started talking about college, he sounded like he was giving a campaign speech. "Your real dad's got you," he told Leah one Saturday afternoon while standing by our driveway, sunglasses tucked into his shirt like he'd just walked out of a commercial. College, car, whatever you need. We'll make it happen. Leah glowed. Caroline smiled too, but she wouldn't look at me. That night, I asked Caroline for a practical meeting. If Trevor's helping with college, that's good, I said. But we need actual dates and amounts. The deposit is due Friday. Housing follows right after. Insurance renews next month. Caroline was folding towels on the bed. She didn't stop, but her hands slowed. Why do you always make love sound like paperwork? Because paperwork is what keeps deadlines from becoming emergencies. He wants to be involved. I'm not stopping him. You don't have to act so threatened. I stared at her. I'm asking who is paying what. She turned away and stacked another towel. Can we please not ruin this for Leah? That sentence had become the family eraser. Any uncomfortable truth could disappear behind Leah's feelings. The graduation dinner was supposed to be simple. A reservation, a table full of relatives, and a few family friends. Graduation cards, a cake that leaned slightly to one side, and too many people taking pictures before anyone sat down. I brought Leah a card and a small necklace with a compass charm. Nothing flashy. I wrote inside that I hoped she would always trust herself enough to move forward and be wise enough to know who had helped clear the road behind her. I didn't make it about me. I signed it, Blake. Trevor arrived late. He walked in almost 20 minutes after everyone else with a shiny gift bag and an apology loud enough for the whole room to hear. Traffic was insane, he said, though nobody had asked. But I wouldn't miss my girl's big night. Leah jumped up and hugged him like the evening had officially started only when he arrived. Someone clapped. Aunt Renee, Caroline's aunt, gave me a soft look from across the table. Not pity exactly. More like she knew something felt off and didn't want to be the first to say it. We took pictures. Leah pulled Trevor to the center. Let me get one with Dad first, she said. That hit, but I stayed still. She was 18. Graduation nights are emotional. I told myself that. Aunt Renee patted the chair beside her. Blake, get in the next one. Leah glanced at Caroline, then back at the camera. In a minute. The minute never came. Dinner started with harmless chatter. College colors, dorms, the usual advice from relatives who hadn't been near a dorm room in decades. Trevor told stories about Leah as a toddler, most of them half wrong, and everyone laughed anyway. He said she had always been determined. He said she got that from him. I looked at Leah's plate. She was pushing pasta around, smiling every time Trevor spoke. When the server cleared the salads, the topic turned to the deposit. It wasn't because I brought it up first. Drew, a longtime family friend, asked if everything was all set for the fall. Leah said, pretty much. Caroline said, we're working on it. Trevor leaned back. Handled. I set my water glass down. The tuition deposit is due Friday. The housing paperwork has a deadline too. We should know who is submitting what. The table went quiet in that way families get quiet when they've been discussing something without you and you suddenly walk into the room. Trevor smiled. Don't make this about money, Blake. It's about a deadline. Leah's face changed. The happy glow cooled into something sharp. You always do this, she said. I kept my voice even. Do what? Make everything about what you pay for so you can feel important. Caroline whispered, Leah. But it wasn't a correction. It was a warning to keep it classy, not to stop. I looked at Leah. I'm asking a practical question. No, she said. You're reminding everyone you have a financial stake in this, so we all remember you get a vote. Trevor looked down, but I caught the corner of his mouth move. Not a full smile. Just enough. I should have stood up then. Instead, I gave Leah one more chance. I have never tried to replace Trevor, I said. But I have helped plan for this because I care about what happens to you. Leah laughed once, and it was worse than yelling. You paid bills, she said. That doesn't make you my father. The whole table froze. Fork stopped. Someone at the far end coughed into a napkin. Aunt Renee looked down at her hands. Leah was breathing hard, but she wasn't done. The best thing you can do for my future is stop acting like you belong in it. I turned to Caroline. I don't know what I expected. Maybe not a defense of me as Dad. I had never asked for that. But a boundary. A basic boundary. Something like, you don't speak to Blake that way. Instead, Caroline's expression tightened, not with outrage at Leah, but with panic at me. Maybe, she said carefully, Blake needs to respect his place tonight. I felt something in me go very still. Trevor cleared his throat. She's just finally old enough to know who her real family is. Caroline didn't correct him either. I placed my napkin on the table. Slow. Deliberate. Not dramatic. I didn't want anyone to say I made a scene. I looked at Leah first, then Caroline. Then I'll respect the place you just gave me. Caroline's eyes widened. Blake. I stood. And if Trevor and Caroline are handling Leah's future from here on out, I'll stop handling it. Trevor's face twitched. Leah looked annoyed, like I was embarrassing her at her own dinner. Caroline stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Don't ruin her night, she hissed when she followed me into the hallway. I stopped near the host's stand. I didn't. You're making this about yourself. No, I said. You all made my role clear. I'm just accepting it. Leah was being emotional. She was being specific. She's a child. She's 18. And you just told me to respect the place she has for me. Caroline folded her arms. So what? You're going to punish her. I'm going home before I say something I can't take back. Trevor stepped into the hallway behind her. Sensitive guy, huh? I looked at him once. You'll need the deposit by Friday. His confidence flickered for half a second. That flicker stayed with me all the way to my car. I didn't go home at first. I parked under a light in a grocery store lot and called my sister, Paige. She picked up on the second ring. What happened? She asked. She always knew from my silence. I told her the short version. Leah's toast to her real dad, the Bill's line, Caroline backing Trevor, and Trevor's little comment in the hallway. Paige went quiet. Then she said, do not go back in there and apologize for being humiliated. I helped raise her. Then she knows exactly who she insulted. She's 18 and old enough to understand that public words have consequences. I rubbed my eyes with the heel of my hand. I don't want to be cruel. Good. Don't be cruel. Be accurate. I almost laughed because it sounded like something only Paige would say. She continued, love is not a subscription service they can cancel emotionally and keep financially. You are not abandoning her. You are handing the bill to the man they put in your chair. That was the first time I let myself think the thought all the way through. The next morning, I went back to the house while Caroline and Leah were out. I wasn't sneaking. It was still my home. I just wanted my passport, personal documents, a few things from the bedroom, and the folder with the 529 paperwork before emotions turned every drawer into a battlefield. The house had that stale morning after smell, takeout containers, perfume, coffee grounds, and the faint sweetness of graduation flowers on the counter. Caroline's phone was face up near the kitchen speaker. She must have forgotten it while rushing out because her purse was gone, but the phone was still there, plugged in beside the fruit bowl. I didn't touch it. As I opened the cabinet above the desk for the document folder, the phone lit up with Trevor's name. Then a voicemail transcription banner appeared on the lock screen. A second later, the kitchen speaker, still connected from the night before, played the beginning of a voicemail loud enough that I couldn't miss it. Caroline, just keep Blake calm until the deposit clears. I can't cover that kind of money right now. You said he always folds, so just. The audio cut off when another notification came through. My body went cold. Then a text preview appeared from Caroline to Trevor. It must have been her reply from earlier, delayed or syncing late. I didn't open anything. I only saw what was on the locked screen. He won't let Leah lose college. He always folds. I stood in the kitchen for a full minute, staring at the sunflower magnet on the fridge holding Leah's acceptance letter. That was the moment heartbreak became math. The dinner hadn't just been Leah lashing out. Caroline and Trevor had already discussed how to manage me. Trevor wanted the title. Leah wanted the fantasy. Caroline wanted the stability. And they all assumed I would keep funding the role after they had publicly stripped it from me. I took a picture of the refrigerator, not the phone. I wrote down the exact words I had heard and seen, with the time. Then I put the 529 folder, my passport, tax records, insurance paperwork, and a few personal items into a box. I called Linda from my car. Linda had handled family paperwork for Paige years earlier, and she had the calmest voice of any person I had ever met. I told her what had happened, including the dinner and the voicemail. I expected a lecture about not acting out of hurt. That was exactly what I got, but in a useful way. Do not punish, Linda said. Separate. There is a legal difference, and you need to stay on the right side of it. I'm not trying to steal from anyone. Good. Then we verify ownership before you touch anything. If the account is yours, you have options. If an obligation is shared, you give notice. Keep everything dated, clean, and boring. Boring became my strategy. Over the next 2 days, I didn't argue by text. Caroline sent messages that were both angry and trying to sound reasonable. Leah was emotional. You were supposed to be the adult. We don't have to destroy a family over one bad dinner. You know she loves you in her own way. I answered only once. I'm going to handle practical matters in writing. Then I stopped. Linda confirmed the 529 account was mine. I was the account owner. Leah was the beneficiary, not the owner. I could change the beneficiary within the permitted rules. Linda didn't tell me to do it out of spite. She asked me to decide whether I was comfortable keeping an education fund assigned to someone whose mother and biological father had publicly said I had no place in her future while privately relying on me to pay for it. That phrasing did what yelling never could. It made the choice plain. I changed the beneficiary to my nephew, Paige's youngest, who had medical issues when he was little and whose family had burned through their savings more than once. I didn't cash it out. I didn't hide it. I moved it legally, documented the confirmation, and sent a copy to Linda. I removed Leah as an authorized user on my gas card. I scheduled her phone line to end after proper notice. I contacted the insurance agent about the car. The car was titled in my name because when Leah got it, Trevor had promised to contribute and then vanished for 3 weeks. Linda told me to send a written notice. Caroline and Trevor could transfer the vehicle into one of their names by a specific date and provide proof of insurance, or the car needed to be returned. I stopped the automatic payment for the college tuition deposit. That one hurt the most. I stared at the college portal for a long time, the cursor hovering over the payment button. Then I heard Leah's voice again. You paid bills. That doesn't make you my father. So I didn't pay that bill. I prepared a certified letter listing the stopped payments, effective dates, and where future bills should be directed. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't satisfying in the way people imagine revenge is. It was mostly nauseating. Every click felt like cutting a thread I had spent years tying. On Sunday, while Caroline and Leah were at Caroline's mother's house, I packed. Not everything. I wasn't trying to clean the place out. I took my clothes, my tools, my documents, the framed photo of my parents, my old coffee mug, a box of books, and the emergency cash envelope I kept taped behind the bottom drawer in the office. I photographed the condition of each room before I left. Clean counters. No damage. No chaos. Just empty spaces where my things had been. The house didn't look destroyed. It looked honest. Before I left, I placed a small wooden box on the kitchen counter. It was the kind of box people use for keepsakes. Caroline had bought it for me years before at a craft fair because she said I needed somewhere to keep all the little things you pretend not to care about. Inside, I put my house keys, copies of payments I had made for Leah over the years, a printout of the upcoming bills redirected to Caroline and Trevor, the car transfer notice, and a sealed envelope marked for Trevor, since he's handling everything. Then I added one photo. Leah had given it to me when she was 12. It was from a school field day Trevor had missed. I was wearing a ridiculous paper crown because her team had won some relay race, and she had insisted I wear it for the picture. On the back, in purple marker, she had written, "Thanks for being there when he wasn't." I left that facing up. On top of everything, I placed one note. You asked me to stop pretending I belong. I stopped paying like I did. Then I left. Caroline called me at 7:12 that evening. I know because I wrote it down. I let it ring once before answering. "What did you do?" she said. No hello. No apology. Just panic wrapped in anger. I separated the voluntary expenses. You canceled Leah's phone? It ends Friday. She has notice. The tuition deposit wasn't paid. Trevor said it was handled. Don't be disgusting. I sat in Paige's guest room with my shoes still on, staring at the wall. I'm not being disgusting. I'm respecting the arrangement you announced. You can't punish a child because she said something stupid. She's old enough to decide I'm not family, so she's old enough to learn what came with that role. Caroline's voice cracked. You're hurting her future. No. I stopped financing the future you said Trevor would handle. You know Trevor doesn't have that kind of money right now. There it was. Not hidden anymore. Not dressed up. I said, then you shouldn't have let him take credit for it. He's her father. And now he can be one. She started crying then, but it sounded more like frustration than grief. We can fix this. Just pay the deposit and we'll talk. No. Blake. No, I repeated. Any conversation about money goes through Linda. I hung up before she could turn my guilt into another payment. Leah called 20 minutes later. I almost didn't answer. Then I did, because some part of me was still the man who answered when she called. "You're cruel," she said. Her voice was shaky but sharp. "I'm sorry you're scared. You're doing this because I hurt your feelings. I'm doing this because you told me where I stood. So you only cared about me when I acted grateful?" That one landed. It was the first thing she said that sounded less like Caroline and more like Leah. Angry, yes, but also scared enough to reach for the nearest weapon. "I cared about you when you were 10 and cried because Trevor forgot your school play," I said. "I cared about you when you were 14 and needed braces. I cared when you got your license and cried in the driveway because you were afraid to merge. None of that stopped being real. Then why are you taking everything away?" "I'm not taking revenge on a child. I'm refusing to finance a lie." She went quiet. I continued. "You said paying bills didn't make me family. I'm accepting that. Family money comes with family respect. You don't get to reject one and keep the other." Her breathing changed. She was crying then, but I didn't rush to fix it. That was new for me. "Trevor said he had it," she whispered. "Then call him. He's not answering." "I'm sorry. Are you really going to let me lose my housing?" "I'm going to let the people who claimed responsibility take responsibility." She hung up. That was the hardest night. Not the dinner. Not the voicemail. That night. Because every instinct I had built over 8 years told me to open the portal, pay the deposit, and stop her pain before it became permanent. I knew the login. I knew the amount. I had the money available. Paige found me at the kitchen table around midnight. "You're thinking about paying it," she said. I don't want her future to be damaged because she repeated what the adults in her life taught her. Paige sat across from me. "Then let the adults who taught her fix it. What if they don't? Then she learns the difference between a title and a parent." I hated that she was right. Trevor did not pay the deposit by Friday. He made excuses. Leah told me later through a long, messy message that he said, "I told you I'd help. I didn't say I had all of it today." He claimed he was waiting on a check, then a transfer. Then he said Caroline should talk Blake down because Blake was making this about ego. The housing option Leah wanted disappeared. Not college entirely. She didn't become homeless. The world didn't end. But the neat, shiny version of her first year collapsed. Caroline had to sit with her and apply for loans, emergency aid, and a cheaper housing plan. Leah had to consider starting with a less expensive arrangement, something she had previously called settling. That consequence was real. It was also not fatal. I held on to that distinction because Caroline tried hard to blur it. She told relatives I had abandoned Leah over one bad dinner. Drew called me first. He had been at the dinner but left early and missed the worst of it. His voice was tight when he said, "Blake, I heard you pulled the college fund. That's rough, man." I corrected the timeline, I said. Then I sent him a short email that Linda reviewed first. It listed only facts: date of dinner, Leah's statement, Caroline's statement, Trevor's statement, the voicemail line I heard without touching Caroline's phone, the text preview, the 529 ownership, and the notices sent. No insults. No name calling. Drew called back the next day. "I didn't know," he said. "Most people didn't." She left out the part about the dinner. I figured. She said Leah cried, and you just snapped. I placed my napkin on the table and walked out. He sighed. "I'm sorry. I should have asked before judging." Aunt Renee called 2 days later from her car. I could hear traffic and her turn signal clicking. "I should have said something at dinner," she said. "You looked like you wanted to." I was ashamed that I didn't. She paused. "Caroline has been telling people Trevor was stepping up. But last week, I heard her tell her mother that Trevor didn't have the money and you would probably come around once Leah panicked." I closed my eyes. Renee continued. "I thought she was exaggerating until Trevor couldn't answer a simple question about the deposit. Then I realized she meant it. Thank you for telling me. I'm not proud of staying quiet. Most people aren't proud until after it costs something." She took that without arguing. The family narrative shifted slowly. Not everyone sided with me. Some said I went too far. Some said college money should never be touched once a kid expects it. A few said step-parents shouldn't attach emotions to money if they choose to marry someone with children. I didn't argue with all of them. I sent the same clean timeline to people who contacted me directly, and then I stopped responding. Caroline hated that most of all. She wanted an emotional fight. Emotional fights can be edited. A calm record is harder to bend. Linda filed the separation paperwork. The house was handled through the proper process. I didn't get everything I wanted. I lost money in the split. I paid fees. I spent afternoons reading documents that made my chest hurt because every page reduced years of dinners, holidays, and emergency grocery runs into assets, liabilities, and dates. But I didn't go back. Caroline tried several times to pull me into a private meeting. "We should sit down as a family," she said in one voicemail. I responded through Linda. "Blake is willing to discuss the marriage and counseling with full honesty and a correction to the claim that he abandoned Leah for no reason." Caroline did not agree. She wanted reconciliation without accountability. She wanted my money back in the system before she admitted why it had left. She wanted me to help clean up the mess while still accepting the seat in the corner. Trevor disappeared from the hard conversations. That surprised nobody except Leah. He still liked posts. He still sent heart emojis. He still told Leah he loved her. But when tuition, housing, insurance, or paperwork came up, he became busy, confused, delayed, or offended. Once, Leah forwarded me a screenshot by accident. It was Trevor texting, "Don't let Blake make money the measure of love." I almost replied, "Easy to say when it's not your money." I didn't. I deleted the draft. A month after the dinner, Leah sent her first apology. "I'm sorry for what I said, but college is my future, and I don't think it's fair that you can just take it away because you're mad." I read it 3 times. There was a younger version of her in that message, the scared kid trying to sound older than she felt. And there was also the same entitlement that had brought us to that table. I answered once. An apology with an invoice attached is not an apology. She didn't respond for 2 weeks. Caroline called Paige after that, which was a mistake. Paige put her on speaker and only told me later because it involved me. Caroline had said, "He's destroying Leah to prove a point." Paige replied, "No, Caroline. He stopped funding the point you made for him." Caroline said I had changed. Paige said, "No, you just reached the end of the part where he pays to be disrespected." I didn't ask Paige to fight my battles, but I was grateful she didn't confuse peace with silence. The separation became a divorce. Not quickly, not cleanly. There were negotiations, paperwork, delays, and one ridiculous argument over a set of patio furniture neither of us even liked. Linda kept telling me to stay boring. "Boring wins," she said. "Boring gets signed." She was right. When the card deadline came, Caroline found insurance and transferred it out of my name. Leah kept the car. I didn't want it back. I wanted my name off the obligation. The phone line ended. Leah got another plan. Caroline complained that it cost more than she expected. The gas card stayed canceled. The education account remained with my nephew as the beneficiary. Every one of those decisions hurt less the longer I lived with the silence that followed. Not because I stopped caring. I still cared. That was the awful part. You can love someone and still refuse to stay in the position they used to drain you. A few months later, Leah sent another message. This one was different. She didn't ask for money in the first paragraph, or the second, or at all. She wrote that she had been angry because Trevor made her feel like choosing him required rejecting me. She said Caroline had told her I would cool off once everyone stopped being emotional, so she hadn't understood that my leaving was real. She said she was embarrassed that she didn't know the phone, insurance, gas, application fees, and college savings were all tied to me because I had never made her feel the weight of them. Then she wrote, "I don't know if I deserve to say this now, but you were there. I knew you were there." I said what I said because I wanted him to stay. I sat with that message for a long time. I didn't forgive her on command. I didn't restore the fund. I didn't rush in to repair the damage so everyone could pretend the apology had fixed the cost. I wrote back the next morning. "I loved you like family. That was real. But I won't pay to prove something you only believe when you need money. I hope you build a good life. I also hope someday you understand that the people who show up quietly are still people." She replied, "I understand more now." Maybe she did. Maybe she was beginning to. But I had learned not to turn a maybe into a mortgage payment. The divorce was finalized almost a year after the dinner. When Linda emailed, "It's done," I expected to feel victorious. I didn't. I felt tired. I felt sad. I felt lighter in a way that didn't feel like a celebration. The first morning after it was final, I made coffee for myself. Just 1 mug. For years, I had made Caroline's automatically, 2 sugars and a splash of cream. Even on mornings when we barely spoke. My hand still reached for the second mug before I caught myself. I put it back. There are things I miss. I miss the version of Leah who once handed me that field day photo with purple marker on the back. I miss believing Caroline would defend me when it mattered. I miss the simple confidence I had when I thought doing the right thing long enough would mean people would eventually name it correctly. But I do not miss waiting to be chosen by people who only wanted me present when a bill was due. Caroline asked once more, through Linda, if I would meet privately for closure. I declined. Closure had been sitting on that kitchen counter in a wooden box. Keys, receipts, a photo, and a note. I had already said everything I needed to say. Trevor is still Trevor. He shows up in pictures. He writes proud captions. He disappears when forms are due. Leah is finding her way, I think. Not the way she expected, and not on my account, but on her own 2 feet. That is probably better for her in the long run, even if none of us would have chosen the way it happened. People ask if I regret cutting off the support. I regret that it took a public humiliation for me to believe what had been said privately for years. I regret teaching them, over and over, that if they waited long enough, my hurt would turn into another payment. I regret confusing endurance with dignity. But I do not regret stopping. I didn't abandon my family. I left the seat they kept telling me was never mine. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.